The door slammed open without warning. Cold morning light sliced through the empty hallway of the corporate tower. And there she stood, Victoria Hale, one of the richest women in the state, frozen. Because right there, on the marble floor, kneeling beside a ripped trash bag, was Marcus, the black janitor everyone ignored. But he wasn't cleaning. He wasn't sweeping. He wasn't even aware she'd walked in. He was holding something delicate, something he shouldn't have had. Victoria's breath caught. Her eyes widened. The security guard behind her reached for his radio, and Marcus looked up slowly, his hands shaking, as the truth spilled out of the folder he was trying to hide. What she found in those papers would flip her entire world upside down. Stay with me, because what happens next will test privilege, expose hidden genius, and reveal a truth no one in that building was prepared for. Victoria Hale was the kind of woman who made rooms fall silent. Sharp suit, unshakable confidence. The youngest CEO in her industry. People whispered about her success, her power, her cold precision. But no one whispered louder than the employees who feared her. Marcus, on the other hand, most people didn't even know his name. To them, he was the janitor, the man pushing a cart before sunrise, the man who never complained, the man who blended into the walls because society preferred him invisible. But that morning, the building wasn't supposed to be open. The cleaning staff had been told to stay home due to an overnight electrical failure. So when Victoria arrived unannounced, frustrated, stressed, and ready to fix a crisis, she didn't expect anyone else inside. She especially didn't expect him. Marcus had always carried a quiet, unspoken dignity, never loud, never confrontational. But people judged his uniform before they judged his humanity. What they didn't know was that behind the gentle smile was a man who once dreamed bigger, a man who had studied engineering before life knocked him down, a man who had lost everything, home, opportunities, and family, yet rebuilt his world through hard, honest work. And inside that thick folder Victoria saw on the floor were blueprints, charts, calculations, ideas so sharp, so revolutionary they didn't belong to a janitor with a mop. The antagonist of this story wasn't just a person. It was the culture of the company, the supervisors who mocked Marcus, the executives who stepped around him, the manager who told him, "People like you stick to cleaning." But destiny had a different plan, because Victoria's company was collapsing under a massive system failure. Millions were on the line, and the only person in the building who truly understood what was going wrong was the man nobody ever paid attention to. Victoria stood frozen in the doorway, her heels planted, her breath stuck in her throat. Marcus didn't notice her at first. He was kneeling on the floor of the dim executive corridor, surrounded by scattered blueprints, wires, and a half-assembled device that looked far too technical for anyone in his pay grade. She watched him adjust a sensor with the precision of a trained engineer. Hands steady, eyes focused, movements deliberate. This wasn't cleaning. This was mastery. Before she could speak, her phone buzzed violently in her hand. "Victoria, our system is failing again. The board needs answers now." Her CFO's voice was frantic. She ended the call slowly, eyes still fixed on Marcus. He finally looked up, startled, embarrassed, like a man caught standing where he didn't belong. "Ms. Hale, I didn't know anyone was here. What is all this?" she asked, stepping closer. His supervisor, Mr. Ridley, appeared from behind the corner, red-faced and angry. "Miss Hale, I apologize. He wasn't supposed to be here. He sneaks in sometimes, messing around with scrap parts. I've told him this area is off-limits." Marcus lowered his gaze. "Not out of guilt, out of humiliation," Ridley continued, louder, as if performing. "He's just a janitor. They tinker with things, you know? Curiosity and all that. Nothing important." Victoria picked up one of the pages Marcus had dropped. Her throat tightened. It wasn't a doodle. It wasn't a toy. It was an accurate schematic of the very system the company had been trying to repair for 6 months. The same system causing millions in losses. Her voice cooled. "Marcus, did you design this?" Ridley scoffed loudly. "Ma'am, trust me. He can't even work the industrial vacuum properly. He's only here because we needed diversity hires. Don't take this seriously." Marcus flinched. Those words weren't new to him. He'd swallowed insults like that for years. But hearing them in front of the CEO, with his work scattered across the polished floor, felt like being stripped of the last piece of dignity he had left. He spoke softly. "I never meant to cause trouble. I study. At home, at night. Engineering textbooks, tutorials, research papers. I wanted to understand the failure in the East Wing system. I thought maybe I could help." Ridley barked a laugh. "Help? You? God, that's rich." Victoria ignored the supervisor entirely. "Where did you learn to draft schematics like this?" she asked. "My father taught me," Marcus said, eyes distant. "He was an engineer. I was studying the same path before he passed. After that, life got complicated." Victoria's chest tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "Show me what you were building." Marcus hesitated, not because he didn't want to, but because every time he'd shown intelligence in the past, someone found a way to punish him for it. Still, he slowly turned the half-built device toward her. "It's a diagnostic amplifier," he said quietly. "It identifies structural weak points in the system wiring. Your company blueprint online had inconsistencies. I thought, maybe that was why the system kept crashing. Did you fix any of it?" she asked. Ridley stepped forward fast. "Miss Hale, please. Don't indulge him. This is a waste of time." Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he lifted a thick notebook and handed it to her. Inside were 32 pages of notes, diagrams, calculations, and repair sequences. Every failure point documented with exacting detail. She felt goosebumps form. This wasn't guesswork. This was genius. Ridley grabbed Marcus by the arm. "That's enough. You're done here. Turn in your badge." Victoria stepped forward sharply. "Let him go." The hallway fell silent. Her eyes locked on Marcus. "How long have you been working on this?" "A little over a year," he whispered. "I cleaned the East Wing every night. I kept noticing things no one else saw. I know I shouldn't touch company systems, but I just wanted to help." She stared at him, really looked at him, and realized the truth. This man wasn't just a janitor. He was a mind her company desperately needed. Suddenly, lights flickered down the hall. Sirens blared from the security system. The building shook slightly as the electrical grid failed again. Victoria's head snapped toward the ceiling, panic rising. Another catastrophic shutdown. Worse than before. Her phone rang again. "Victoria, the whole East Wing is offline. We need a diagnosis now." She turned back to Marcus. "Can you fix this?" Marcus swallowed. "I can try, but I'll need full access." Ridley exploded. "That is out of the question." Victoria raised a hand, and with a steady voice filled with resolve, "Give him access." Ridley stared at her like she'd lost her mind. But she hadn't. For the first time, she saw hope. The building plunged deeper into crisis, and the only person who understood exactly what was happening was the man everyone had ignored. The frozen winds howled across the battlefield as if the earth itself warned both sides to turn back. But neither the Vikings nor the Mongols were here to retreat. They were here to conquer or to die. The Mongol commander, Subutai lieutenant, rode forward, scanning the Viking shield wall with narrow, calculating eyes. These northern warriors were unlike any foe they had faced. No fear, no hesitation, only a terrifying, silent readiness, the kind that made even seasoned Mongol scouts shift uneasily in their saddles. The Vikings tightened their ranks, towering men with frost-bitten beards, their shields rimmed with iron, breath rising like steam from war horses. At the center stood Jarl Eirik, gripping his axe so hard that his knuckles turned white against the cold. He whispered a single command: "Hold." Far across the ice, Mongol horns blared, a sound that once shattered empires, now cut through the northern wilderness like a blade. In seconds, the Mongol formation shifted, from stillness to a living storm. Hundreds of riders surged forward, bowstrings already drawn, hooves pounding against ice like cracking thunder. Their arrows rose into the pale sky, forming a dark cloud that blotted out the weak winter sun. The Vikings braced, shields lifted, feet dug into the snow. And then, The sky rained death. Arrows hammered the shield wall with brutal force. Wood split, iron bent. Men grunted as shafts thudded into their shields like drumbeats. A few arrows slipped through gaps, sinking into shoulders and thighs. But still, the shield wall held. The Mongols circled, riding with supernatural precision. Their horses danced across the frozen earth as if weightless. Riders fired arrows behind, their backs while twisting at full speed. Impossible angles, impossible accuracy. And yet, the Vikings refused to break. Jarl Eirik roared above the chaos. Forward! The shield wall moved, slowly at first, like a glacier sliding toward the sea. Then faster. Step by heavy step they advanced, pushing back against the storm. Their axes rose. Their breath thickened. Their battle song grew, deep, ancient, and terrifying. Hearing it, some Mongol riders faltered. For the first time in years, the Empire's most feared cavalry felt uncertainty. Subutai's lieutenant signaled again. The Mongols unleashed their next wave, heavy riders, armored horses, lances gleaming. They thundered forward, aiming to shatter the Vikings with pure weight and speed. The impact was brutal. Lances crashed against shields, splintering with explosive force. Vikings staggered but did not fall. They roared, counterattacking with savage precision. Axes bit into horse armor, spears pierced riders. The ice beneath them cracked, stained with blood. The Mongols regrouped, circling again, raining arrows into the gaps. The Vikings tightened formation, but exhaustion was spreading. Their shields were cracked. Their arms were burning. Their breaths came in ragged clouds. Still, they refused to die quietly. Jarl Eirik saw his opportunity. A single weak point in the Mongol formation. A moment of overconfidence. He lifted his axe, roaring, "Now, charge!" The Vikings exploded forward like unleashed wolves. They slammed into the Mongol flank with such force that horses reared and riders toppled. For a moment, just a brief moment, the Mongol line buckled. The impossible had happened. The unstoppable army was pushed back. Mongol commanders shouted orders, trying to regain control. Riders fought desperately, firing arrows at point-blank range. But the Vikings were inside their lines now, too close, too furious, too determined. The ice beneath their feet shook with the violence of combat. Eirik swung his axe at a Mongol captain, cleaving through armor. The captain fell and panic rippled through nearby riders. The Vikings pressed deeper, breaking through the swirling storm of cavalry. But then, a sharp, piercing whistle cut through the battlefield. Every Mongol rider heard it. Every Viking would soon regret it. From the tree line emerged a fresh wave. Elite horse archers, untouched by battle, moving in perfect, terrifying coordination. They were Subutai's hidden reserve, the force he never revealed until the moment that decided victory. They galloped forward, unleashing a synchronized volley so dense, so precise, that even the strongest Viking shields could not withstand it. Arrows hammered them from three sides at once. Men fell, the shield wall crumbled. Jarl Eirik's warriors, who moments earlier had pushed back the greatest cavalry in history, were now surrounded. The Mongols tightened the circle, closing in like a tightening noose. Arrows, spears, hooves, death came from every direction. Still, the Vikings fought. Still, they roared. Still, they refused to kneel. Jarl Eirik, wounded and bleeding, lifted his axe for one final strike. His roar echoed across the frozen battlefield, a roar of defiance so fierce that even a Mongol general later admitted he had never seen men fight with such terrible courage. But courage is not always enough. The Mongol reserve closed in. The Vikings were overwhelmed, and the last of the shield wall fell beneath the storm. The ice grew silent. The wind returned. And the Mongols, victorious yet shaken, stared at the field with a rare emotion, respect. Because on that day, on that frozen ground, the Vikings had done what no empire had expected. They made the Mongols fear. The battlefield finally fell silent. But the silence did not feel like victory. It felt like a wound the wind itself was trying to heal. Snow drifted over broken shields, shattered spears, bodies of warriors who had given everything. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting a golden fire across the frozen land, as if the sky mourned what had happened here. And in the middle of that dead, frozen vastness, two forces who had never feared anyone now feared each other. The Mongol commander, Subutai's messenger, stood still, breath heavy, eyes locked on the distant tree line where the surviving Vikings disappeared. These were not peasants, not farmers, not another tribe to crush under horse hooves. They were iron. They were winter itself. They fought like men who had already accepted death as an old friend. For the first time in many campaigns, a Mongol officer whispered the unthinkable. These Northmen, they do not break. He watched the Vikings vanish into the mist, limping, bleeding, but unbowed. And inside his chest, for the first time, a quiet tremor, a feeling the Mongols rarely tasted, uncertainty. Meanwhile, in the forest beyond the ridge, the remaining Vikings gathered around a burning pyre. Their leader, Erik Thornson, held the axe of a fallen brother close to his chest. He didn't cry. Vikings didn't cry. But his silence, his shaking breath, was grief louder than any scream. He looked at the 20 remaining warriors. Once they had been 100, a proud shield wall that stood against the greatest war machine the world had ever known. Now, only a few remained. But those few were carved from something the Mongols had never faced before. Unyielding loyalty, unyielding rage, unyielding hearts. Erik lifted the axe slowly. Snowflakes melted on the glowing metal. Today, he said softly, we showed them the price of stepping onto our land. He looked up at the sky. The ravens circled above, as if the old gods themselves had witnessed the battle. But this is not revenge, he continued. This was only a warning. The wind carried his words across the clearing like a vow, a Viking vow. Back on the Mongol side, a scout galloped through the snow toward the main camp. His horse almost collapsed as he slid to a halt. "General," he shouted. The Mongol general looked up from a war map. "Well?" The scout swallowed. They fought like demons. They did not kneel. They did not yield. And they killed 10 for every one of their own. The general froze. 10 for 1. Only one other enemy in Mongol history had ever forced such a ratio. The samurai. That meant something. Something dangerous. The general slowly closed the map. This land, he whispered, will not be easy. The Mongols began tightening their armor, checking supplies, sharpening their blades, not because they had lost, but because they finally understood. The North was not a place you conquered by strategy. It was a place you survived by will. Something inside the great Mongol war machine shifted that night. A respect, a calculation, a shadow of doubt. A doubt caused by only one battle, only 100 Vikings, only one frozen field. Hours later, as storm winds rose over the horizon, Erik Thornson walked alone to the edge of the cliffs. He stared into the endless darkness. The Mongols weren't done, and neither were they. A single ember drifted from the Viking fire and vanished into the wind. Erik whispered, "I think this was the end. But the real storm has not even begun." Because sometimes it is not the victory that echoes through history. It is the courage of those who refuse to kneel.